Shall I?
Oh, God. No, you want to start recording? Okay, well, that's better.
It takes one to know one, Keith. Let's just put it that way.
Thank you. I'm sure it does. So tonight at the London Power Platform User Group, we have the astounding Carl Cookson, whose work on XrmToolBox is nothing short of legendary. And if you don't know what XrmToolBox is, you're about to find out. It's so cool. You just wouldn't believe. And about 45 minutes after Carl starts speaking, we're going to have Andrew Welch and Lucy Bourne, their guide to making a great business case for Power Platform in your organization. And if I'm absolutely honest, if these two can't make you convinced or make you convincing to someone in a business as to why they need Power Platform, then it's a lost cause and you should probably not bother. So without further ado, Mr. Cookson, I believe you're going first. It's like just a minute. You can't repeat the words. All right. Good luck, mate.
Thank you, Keith. I've just realised my head covers over the sign, but I'm hoping you can see my screen and see my presentation. You might want to pin me. That's it. Thank you. So I'm Carl Cookson, and tonight I'm going to introduce you to XrmToolBox. Just to let you know who I am, I'm available on LinkedIn, LinkedIn365, and my blog are there as well. I work for Avanade in the UK, normally in London, who are a global systems integrator. XrmToolBox, if you're a Dynamics 365 person, is probably something you use every week at the very least, every day, more than likely. And it's been brought out of that Dynamics environment. But as everyone knows, CDS is the child of that environment. So a lot of the tools that are produced by the XrmToolBox are available for you to use against your Power Platform environments, your CDS. And I just wanted to give you a history of it, really, because it has a vast history. Tanguy Tuzard, who's the main man here, he's been an MVP since 2009, so which is a lot longer than a lot of people on this call have been involved in CRM or Power Dynamics, never mind being awarded an MVP for it. And he started doing tools that were his own tools that he published to allow him to stop repeating tasks. And this is what the XrmToolBox is to make your life easier. And he did that until he decided with others that the idea of bringing all these things together into a common framework was the way to go. And in 2012, that's when we started seeing the XrmToolBox. And at that point, it really started to flourish, especially when the toolbox and the marketplace effectively within the toolbox comes about, because people started making their own tools. And some more notable things, Fetch XML Builder, which we'll go and see later, arrives in 2014. And Jonas Rapp, who again is a hero in this story, is very much one of the main contributors to the XrmToolBox, and he produces the Fetch XML tool, which is probably the most used tool in the toolbox. And as you see, as we progress through the years, we get to a point where we're at today, where we've got 225 plugins available, and these are a mixture of tools, predominantly Dynamics 365 tools, but like I said, are to do with connecting to a CDS environment. When I asked Jonas about what his highlights were for these last 12 years, this one here, tools inside is, oh, sorry, previous, click too far. This one here, when it was renamed a tool from a plugin, was his highlight. He's very particular about the name. If you ever spell the name incorrectly on any sort of media, he will have you. He's even done a little, he's got a copy and paste effectively on that to make sure that you're saying and using the right terminology. So as I've got here, capital X, capital T, capital B. But the other parts of that he was also wanted me to highlight was that multiple connections, and I'll show you that later on, where you've got connections between two environments, and that basically allows you to do things across those two environments. Okay, so this is Tanguy. He's the one that's first awarded in 2010. He's now got 11 of these things. This, you can see the number of tools going up over time. Got this data from himself, so he's really, you can see that the number of tools is continually increasing, and that's been because we're branching out into the requirements of the CDS environment. Dynamics itself in its core doesn't change an awful lot over those years, but people are trying to find innovative ways of doing things that they regularly have to do, and that's the key of this. If you need to repeat something, then you should be writing a tool for it, and you know, that's the premise of Power Automate and all the rest of them. But before we had those tools, we had code and we had the toolbox. Okay, very simple to install. Go to XrmToolBox.com. It might be blocked in your environment depending on your settings of your download. You need to unzip it, start it up, and it will start, and you'll see, and I'll show you how it gets to that point. So let me escape out of that and show you a few of the key points around the XRM Toolbox. First of all, there's the idea of connections. Bring that over to this window. So you can see in these connections, you've got I've got a long list because I've used it before of connections, and the idea of creating a connection, even if you use the wizard or any other way that you want to connect this thing, is just to allow your this application to talk to your environment. And the simplest way is to stick in your URL and get the instance correct, and step through the your configuration here, and save the password, and then it will go and try and connect. And there's plenty of other ways of doing that, but this is the simplest way. As you can see from those connections, the list, depending on how your system is locked down. So you've got the client ID and secret if you need to talk to your Azure AD guys to set that up if they're controlling the login of your environment, usually in a production setting where you're restricting that sort of thing. We've even got certificates, and then we're starting to get into the new OAuth multi-factor authentication. So all of these things are available to you, and this is the beauty of the tool from a developer's point of view, is all of this is provided for you. I don't have to do anything for this. I just need to connect to it and use the functionality that's made available to me. So we're connected now, and I wanted to start with the main man, effectively. Fetch XML Builder. So if you're in a flow and you're doing a read of a record, and you need to provide details about, this list record component that I've got here has got a filter query and an expand query, and this tool allows you to do that in the Power Apps and in this world. It allows you to start building up these queries. So I've got a very simple condition here where I'm trying to find all the account codes that are not inactive. I might want to change that to active just to run. So that's going off to my database. It's getting all that information, and I've got all my accounts listed there. quite simple and straightforward. I can obviously, if I wanted to save it, I can do a few other things as well. The one that is key to in the CDS environment, the Power Automate environment, we can start looking at these Power Automate parameters. So those are the things that you want to copy. And if we get more complicated than that, if I want to add a link entity and I want to get all the contacts for that, let me take the entity name, all those contacts and the accounts associated with them, I can start building them up in a very much a click and connect way. And we can play that, and you can now see that I've got an awful lot of columns because I've now got fields from the contact and the account. And again, I can go and get the what have I done there? I can go and get the fetch XML itself, which we can use further down into code and that sort of thing, or in a Power App, or I can look at the Power App parameters. So it's providing you a very easy way of getting at these things nice and quickly and easily. Key to the, most of the time, if you're a developer and you're trying to get a bit more out of it, or you're trying to streamline those queries to the database effectively via the API, you want to do one query and get everything you want. So it's one hit on the API. Then you can use this tool to boot out those things that you want, strip down all the data that you need, and really get to the nuts and bolts of what you're actually wanting to achieve. And it's a very much an easy way of doing that. The next one I wanted to show off was the bulk data updater. Again, this is Jonas Wrap. And you can see this is starting to show you the links between the two. So we can basically say link back to fetch XML and say I want to use this query, and it will go away and do that query. And what I want to do is basically go and update one of the fields on there, or touch it so that it gets a record update and triggers a workflow, or clear it out. And you can do that on, well, in this case, 1,200 accounts within the bat of an eye. So if you imagine you're setting up a new environment, or you're moving data between environments, or you need to correct a data mistake that you've had in production, you've imported a new bit of code, but it's requiring this field that's not been populated for everything. This is the tool that you can go to go and update all those things instantly. And it basically does all that work for you, rather than writing the Power Automate, which is probably where you would go nowadays, or a workflow to try and get to that point. Someone's written that code and done a lot of work to allow you to skip those steps and do them straight away. The next one is the attribute manager. So I forgot to say that when I was in here, I've got my recently used tools here. I've also got, if I go to configuration and tool library, you can see all the tools that are available, and I'm not showing tools not installed. So all the ones in black are the ones that I haven't got installed. You can see there's an awful lot of them. And these tools are like the Apple iStore, etc. They get ratings and they get the number of downloads. You can see all of that, and you can be confident that they've been tested by other people. And most of them are open source as well. So if you really were concerned about it, you could go and look at the source code, create your own version effectively if you wanted to make sure, really be positive, and go from there. But that open source nature means that Tanguy does a bit of checking, but you'll find that Jonas is probably doing a lot of looking at it at the back end to make sure that the quality is there and the configuration is there. He spent a lot of time with me trying to, when I first started, to try and get these tools to a state that was acceptable. And at that point, you sort of become a trust within, because of the way that they take it so seriously. They're not making any money about it, but they are really, really committed to providing quality tools in this environment, because at the end of the day, it would come back to Tanguy and the rest of them if there was an issue. Though they're licensed and caveated through the roof with etc. But it's a matter of making sure that the quality is there as well. Where was I? Attribute manager. Dowlabar, another multi-world award-winning MVP like Jonas. He's created a tool where what we can do is, if we have a look at the account, for instance, and we think that one of the fields, where's that not come up? I've lost it now. That was there. Have I got the right one? That's not working for me. What this tool is trying to do is fix an attribute. So you've got an attribute that has got, you've decided needs to be a text from an integer or vice versa. What it will do is create a copy of that attribute, of the new attribute, port all the data over, and then change the attribute back, which allows you to fix your CDS in effect, that the time that you've spent building up those, and you've made that very simple mistake, and it really does save you a lot of heartache and fields that are labeled this is the real integer value, or this is a currency and it's not meant to be a currency value type thing. So you can change the data types and merge those, move that data around in your environment. And it does it, like I say, by dropping the column and making a copy of it before moving on. I don't know why that wasn't working, but like I said, these tools are there for you to try on a dev test environment before you're confident to put them onto production. Data transporter, another one that I think is pretty relevant to a CDS environment. And all of these ones are, there's other tools in here that are really D365 oriented, but this one is particularly appropriate. What I can do here is I've got my demo environment. I've also got a second demo environment because I've been doing some marketing stuff in the last month or so. And what I want to do is move some data between the two. Now, if you were doing that in the CDS world, yeah, you could use a flow nowadays, or it would more than likely be an Excel spreadsheet import export. But this tool allows you to do it straightforwardly. So here I have selected the account. I can then go and decide which fields I want to actually come across. It's selected all of them for me. I can filter it, and I can provide that fetch XML filter to reduce the records set that I'm going to move across. I can download those filters for later, and then I can think, right, okay, I'm pretty confident with that. Let's go and do that. So I'm not going to do that because it's going to create 1200 records, but the idea of creating 1200 records, all of these records that it's going to map between your source and your destination very easily, very effectively, really getting to a point where you can, when you're spinning up trials, for example, and you're moving between demo environments, or you've got a need to reproduce a UAT environment, for example, these are the things that can save you an awful lot of time and are repeatable. And this also has the advantage of having a playlist. So you can set up a sequence of steps. So you can say, well, import my contacts, then import my accounts, Then my contacts, and then I can do the cases, because then I've got both of those key core records, and I can bring them all across. So very easily and very quickly, you can build up a sequence of steps, which you then allow it to do. Save that away, and next time you want to rebuild an environment, there you go. It's all there, ready for you. No need to keep those spreadsheets and those vast amount of data that are around you. And this is one of the ones that really excites me from a CDS point of view, that I want to get involved in, because it sort of sets the basis for one of the tools that I'm using. And if I can incorporate the two, it might be able to make sure that we've got all that data in one place, and really appreciate what it's got there. Finally, from other people's tools, before I show you the 3 that I've done that are relevant, is the document generator. In the professional world, in the consultancy world, documentation is the bane of any business analyst, functional consultant, technical architect, solution architect, and anyone in between, because it's probably just after you've delivered the project that they say, right, okay, can you give me all the documentation for it? Tell me what you did. Ensure that we've got a list of all the things that you created, and added to the solution, and everything to do with it, so that we've got a point in time. And that usually feeds into the technical design document, or the FDD would be a combination of a few of these things. And it's a deliverable to a lot of clients. I know we all say we're agile now, but these are something that lots of normal projects would expect, and it can be a lot of pain to generate these things. So here I'm just going to select the account. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to reuse the one I reused earlier, and make sure I don't have it open, and generate the document. And straight away, we've got a list of all the fields within the account, as well as their display names, their attributes, all those things that you can get at, and it's very difficult to get at in your normal make.powerapps.com environment. And you could augment that. That would then be the basis. You probably want to do some editing here, like you need to do with everything, and take out the fields that are redundant, like do we really need to do the created user and by, etc. Are we just worried about the fields that we've added, all that sort of thing. But it gives you that basis, rather than laboriously copying and pasting the bits from the make.powerapps experience. Right, I've created 4 tools now. The first one was very much dynamics centric, and I'm not even going to show you tonight, because it's to do with the org settings. And in a dynamics world, you have a hidden table, effectively called the organization table, which stores a load of settings, and a load of those things can be configured within Dynamics 365, but a lot of them are secret squirrel, and they're only meant to be touched if you've got the support of the Microsoft support. And I don't think those are applicable anymore. A lot of them are historic as well, because a version of Dynamics 365 did do it one way, and they've changed it to another way. But one that is relevant, one that I think where I started on my Visio journey, was effectively being able to create Visio diagrams, again documenting the solution from your entity relationship diagram. So everyone knows we've got accounts, we've got contacts, and there's a relationship between them. But actually there's a primary contact relationship, as well as a many-to-many account to contact relationship. There's a lot of things on the side. There's a reciprocal relationship for the parent of the account, and all this is out of the box. And then when you start getting into more of the advanced functionality, and you can see from here, I've got you've got the portal configured, and we've got field service configured. It soon gets into a warren of where those relationships are, and understanding that relationship diagram is very difficult. Microsoft have provided us with a .NET solution that generates this stuff in Visio, but what I decided to do was effectively do it using Visio. So if I set a file up here, call it an ERD, I've selected both my one-to-many and my many-to-one relationships, and I can create the Visio. And I've only got 2 entities there, but you'll see in a minute that because I've said 2 of these things, the document that gets produced is pretty vast. So this is just 2 entities, account and address, but I've said give me all the child entities of both of those. If I then do a auto align and space, you can see that in the middle we've got the account, and we've got the primary key, which is an account ID, and we've got this whole host of foreign keys off to various things. Like I said, that primary contact ID, and these things are basically showing you the crow's foot notation of a one-to-many or many-to-many relationship. And if we select one of them and show the data, I can't see it because of my screen. Where is it? Where's the date shape? There you go. We can see that those relationships are listed there. So the one that I've selected is the project to, so this is probably project sales automation or field service that's given us this relationship and generated this relationship. As you can see, it's going over here to this table here. So at this point, I would then go and delete everything I wanted not to see, to make sure that we're only displaying to the end users, to our documentation, the ones that we've recorded. And here I can actually go and get from a solution. So if I said, well, I've got this solution that I was doing, I'm not sure which ones have got stuff in actually. Let's try that one. So this is basically, I can then just do this for the KPI survey or just this solution and produce those diagrams so they can easily get to a starting point. I'm not saying it's perfect, but the idea of someone going in and creating all of those boxes and putting that detail in, I'm hoping I'm saving you time at that point. The next one is Key's favorite word, if I can find it. The Mockaroo data munger, and the munger part is thanks to our good friend Chris Huntingford, because it's one of his trigger words, I think. But anyway, the idea of this tool is to help me when I build demos. So I'm always building demos, and I'm doing a lot of marketing or customer insight demos at the moment. And customer insights, customer service insights, needs a lot of historic data. So if you need to prepare a lot of data, you need to randomize that data so that you're not just getting the 10,000 of the same contact or the same case and not all the same status. We've got different products, so you can really build up and mimic a real world scenario. And what I've done here is effectively use, there's a website called mockaroo.com, which provides you with an open API if you've got a key that will allow you to generate data. So effectively what it's saying is that I want you provide me with 100 first names, and they'll all be different, and then give me 100 last names and 100 emails. And the clever thing about Mockaroo was that those three would match. So you would get carl.cookson@gmail.com, and those three would match up. You would get a load of data that, you can ask for an address, and the address would actually be situated roughly in the right place. So you wouldn't get a UK postcode with a French city, for instance, and all those things in between. And this API is wonderful for producing these data, and it's free. You can get up to 200,000 records a day from it, up to 1,000 records a time, admittedly. So you can quickly run out of patience, effectively, to try and get to the 200,000. So what I'm doing here is, if I wanted to generate a load of accounts for my environment, and I can then go and choose one of the Mockaroo settings. These are all the options that Mockaroo has for generating strings, and you can see that we've got first name, last name, we've got European versus male and female as well. We've got email addresses, we've got Chinese family names, all these things that generating would be tough. We've also got things like naughty strings, which aren't rude words, they're things that usually break things. So you've got your numerous slashes, backslashes, hashes, all those sort of weird characters. You've got postal codes that you could put into places to generate true life looking data. But for now, let's just call it that. Let's get a let's decide that, well, that's not going to give us anything, but let's look at, right, okay, the billing account. What I've got here is a link back up to, it's a lookup. So let's go and do a random lookout of all the accounts, and here I can see all the accounts that I've got in my environment. I can select some, and what I'm doing is allowing Mockaroo to randomize that for me, but then put back into it the ID. We've got plenty of other things here that there's so many different options here that it's very difficult. But let's just put in an email address. Did I get account name? Is the only required field, it's the only one I'm worried about, and I want to go and get some data. So obviously, in the real world, I'd spend a bit more time making sure that I've got the amount of data that I need and the right information. But here we've got a whole host of data. We've got some company names, we've got email addresses, and this is the GUID of the billing account. So you can see that there's some duplicates here, but that means it's done it. It's selected a random one out of those selection that I gave it, and then decided, right, okay, let's use that one this time, and I've done the translation between the two. And once I'm happy with that, and yeah, I'm going to create 1,000 records here, so I need to sort of give it an eyeball and make sure that, yeah, it does look about right. I can go and create data. So when it's whirling away, I've now created 1,000 rows, and let me just go and find my demo environment to prove that I've now got a silly amount of contacts. You can see all these are the ones that it's generating, all created at 1908, and it's just basically using the API call to go and generate that data. And for me, that's the starting point for this. The Mockaroo Munja is that we now can save that configuration. So every time I create an environment, I can then go back and create this data. I can also adjust the create date so that I can then put historic data in, or it appears to be historic. I'm just going to let that run because that's it doesn't usually take that long. There must be something happening in Europe that I don't know about, but you can still see it's still chugging away. And yes, okay, there's a lot of other data tools out there. Power Automate will probably be able to do this for you as well, but it's just making sure that you've got that repetition and be able to do it as well every time. So if I go back to my tools, and where's the, I can also show you my latest tool, which is gone. It's gone off my recent tools, which is Flow to Visio. Oh, there you go. Sorry, it's not tools. That's where I should be, sorry. Now, I've already discussed CDS and this flow to Visio does what it does, says on the tin. I can use my, so if I show you the flow first of all, so this is the flow that we're going to use in a minute. So this is a flow which is basically doing some work after it gets a trigger. This one is for my Alexa link between Alexa and field service. It's going away and creating a load of variables. I've got a scope here, which is just me testing effectively to go and do some things. And then I've got a loop, which is doing nothing, because this is a testing one that I've been playing with. But we've got an if statement here, and we've also got this switch. So by the time I've got to this point, we've got a substantial flow, and I'm sure those guys out there have done a lot more substantial than this. But my point being is that to document this currently, you would have to go into each one of these, expand it, take a screenshot, move it back down a bit, take another screenshot, etc., etc. And what I'm trying to do with this is, again, give you a starting point. So if I create this one, I give it a file name, and hit save, and then create Visio. And what I've got here is a version of that. I just need to tidy up a bit now and again within Visio. So yes, we're still quite big, but you can see that each of the statements is rendered. I've got some of the key points. I've tried to, and I'm keep on bringing back to these things are JSON objects, and I'm trying to get the key points out of each one. You've got down the bottom, you've got this switch statement that's now fully documented. You can see that what each of the values are, what it's going to do, what it's going to return, and it's all coming back down to this end switch. This is overlapping a bit because I can't quite get my head around how to space these out properly and take out this dynamic, because I'm going down from here. So at this point, I don't know how many bits there is to display on this line, but I'm sure I'll get there eventually, and it's a work in progress. But again, if we go to auto align and space, oh, not that one. There's another one. Where is it? Anyway, you can spread these out, and you would do. You would start thinking about, well, I'm not really fond about these ones, so I'll just spread them out a bit and make points of the ones that you want to do. And again, it's just a starting point. A lot of these things might not be relevant to you, but you might be really interested in this one, so we can drag this down to ensure that we've got the full details of that response back to the customer. Yeah, and that's about it really. It's a means of, for me, doing the things that take the time as a consultant, which is documentation. It doesn't take long to create a flow like this. We all know that, and that's the beauty of the Power Automate. But we now need to make sure that we can then document it and move it on and into different environments. And the crux of it for, let me go back to the XrmToolBox. So you can actually go to the Flow API. If you didn't know that there's a section of flows within my flows up here, which aren't in an environment. I can't get to this via CDS because they're not stored within the usual place. So if you connect to the API, and provide an app ID, tenant ID, all these things that are hard. You'll have to get your Azure admin to do, and then it will get you to a point where I can do an authentication. Let me go to my proper account. I've got those two flows, so both the HTTP compose and this button that's in there, and again I can go and create that video. I don't want to overwrite it because I've probably got it open. And again, I've got that video that's been generated. A bit more simple, this one, but it's generated. And at that point, I can do what I want with it. So yeah, that's me. Any questions on any of that? Am I about right on time, Keith? Anyone listening?
Hey Carl, it's Al here. When you're doing the documenting the CDS, can you filter out the system tables and just have your tables that you've created, the entities that you've created?
Yeah, you can do that by solution.
Yeah.
So I can do this link, which is only between the ones that I select. So if I'm in all entities.
Can't see your screen at the moment.
Oh, sorry, I need to go back to it.
All right.
If I'm in all entities, I can select a few entities and select only between the ones I've selected,
Right.
which is one way of doing it. And then I've also got the toggling of the hide system, which will take out that one I showed you didn't have the many-to-many relationship between entity and activity and account, for example, and all the other party tables that are actually in the database, the structure. So it takes them all out and tries to do that. But obviously, there's probably some changes day after day. So.
Okay. Cool. Looks really good.
Hi, Carl. EY here. Absolutely great presentation. I'm using the tools almost every day at the moment. What are the differences between levels 1, 2, and 3?
Where?
On the top right, you've got the option to select.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. That's how far you're going down. So an account will have contacts. A contact will have other things associated, case, etc., associated with it, and child contacts and whatever else. And that's basically saying only go one level down, or 2 levels down, or the 3rd level down, to try and limit again the number of entities. And that it really does go from being manageable to, yeah, this is just ridiculous size if you get to 3. So I stopped at 3, just for my own sanity, really.
Okay, so it's the levels of the hierarchy in essence that it's going.
The number of layers to go down. So you've got a one-to-many relationship. Does it go down to the next one-to-many relationship of that and document that one too?
Okay.
So
if we had a situation whether we had more levels of the hierarchy, we could just do it at the top level and go down a couple of levels and then rerun it again.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Amazing tools.
Well, I think you've blown everybody away, just like we expected you to, Carl, with these incredible tools you've been building. And thank you from everybody who's used them. I know there's a lot of people that out in the community that use them in anger. I certainly have. So, yeah, I mean, anything coming from you next? What's the next step? What's the next cool thing you're working on?
I'm just moving through the list of bugs, a list of features that people are asking me for at the moment. The thing is, with any sort of development you're doing out of hours, it sort of peaks and troughs. So I try and do a lot and then sort of take some time off and twiddle my thumbs a little bit and take some time with the family, because it does suck up a lot of time especially when you're getting close. I don't know who was on the call, but I had a few, Matt Beard and Matt Collins Jones and Flo Joe, all testing this for me, and it gets to that point where you're you're reacting to things. It's just like releasing any product. You just sort of get to a point where you're thinking, is it good enough? Have I done enough? And all that sort of thing. So I'm just trying to, at the moment, calm down a bit on it, and smell the coffee a bit, and go from there.
Yeah, I know how that feels, mate. I know how that feels. Right. So we all need some convincing about the common data service and about making power apps in your business and being convincing. And there's no two more convincing people than Andrew and Lucy, mainly because they've convinced people like Lee to fall in love with them, and that's a feat in itself.
Yeah, with both of us.
I just confirm it was just the one of us.
Yeah, I convinced Lee to fall in love with Lucy. It was me. It's true. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, that head shake says it all. So I'll introduce Andrew. Andrew is the business applications director at an amazing company called AIS, who you probably have heard of. They awarded Power Platform Partner of the Year this year, astoundingly, and they've also been very kind and sponsored the production of the Power Platform Adoption Framework. And there is Lucy Bourne, who you do things with ISVs, Lucy, but I don't actually know your proper job title, so I have to apologise. But Lucy's an ISV kind of advocate-y person at Microsoft. She did do pre-sales at Hitachi, which is where I met her, and she's an all-round fountain of knowledge about Power Platform and how to sell it, which is one of the most important things you can do. But she can't figure out how to mute and unmute the microphone at the moment, which is much more funny.
We have a problem actually in that my Teams just updated and I need to restart Teams. So Lucy's going to talk for a minute on her phone while I restart Teams, and we'll be back in just a second.
So while Andrew does that, I can actually give you my job title. So I'm a partner development manager in our strategic recruit team here in Microsoft the UK, and I get the fabulous job of working with both ISVs and SIs that are looking to break into the Microsoft partner network. So I get to understand like where we can best support them and how we can work with them. So I'm delighted to work with a bunch of people on the call. I've never struggled to ad lib, but for some reason, watching Andrew try and restart Teams sitting in the kitchen drinking a dark and stormy, I find it slightly more complicated. But we're really delighted to be with you this afternoon, and I think we. For those of you that went to CDS Saturday, hosted by the fabulous Sarah Lagerfist and Jonas Rapp, who has been name dropped more times than I can mention in this afternoon's call, you will be familiar with some of this content because we actually developed this presentation for CDS Saturday because we felt like we were all having a conversation around the benefit and the difference of the common data service over and above that of the rest of the Power Platform, and perhaps fueling Power Platform with other functionality, perhaps SharePoint lists, Microsoft lists. And so we sat down and spent some time thinking about why we felt the common data service and the Power Platform deserved a better presence within an organization. And so as such, we know that many of you have been having these conversations, and we actually know that some of you have been struggling to have these conversations externally or with your business. And so we have put together the guide for building the case for Power Platform in your organization. And with that, Andrew, if you could just hurry up sharing your screen.
I'm working on it. All right. The entire thing has updated and it's driving me crazy. Give me a second.
Keith, I must say though, in the meantime, you described AIS with the pronoun they and they have been, and actually you are part of AIS now, and I know that they're delighted to have you. So you need to start changing your pronouns, mate.
Yeah, well, I was just trying to be kind of like a little bit agnostic there, Luce. I wasn't trying to, big up my own firm. I was trying to be like a good presenter and like they have on the BBC.
Oh, like true BBC fashion.
Well,
yeah.
Keith helped me out a lot today, so I got to give him props. It's great to have you on the team at AIS. So
yeah,
you,
Jeff.
Hey, Lucy, how are you? Yeah.
Good. How are you?
Doing great.
Good. I'd be better if Andrew was sorting his game out, but
He is the
Well,
business
you know-
applications director, not the M365 director.
feel
Just
like
make that clear.
My camera on so you can see the panic in his face.
Yeah, there is some panic in my face here.
It's only almost 3:30 here, so not ready for dark and stormy yet. But get your stuff together.
Andrew, do you want another laptop?
Maybe, yeah. Can you work on that for us, Lee?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Lee.
Oh, Lee.
Lee's fulfilling the job as technical help as usual.
Yeah, plug the router back in, will you?
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like Richard Attenborough. Currently, we are watching the Baker Bourne household as the male of the household approaches the female with his laptop open. He
This is
spots
the
another
equivalent
man
to
in the
HDMI
watering hole.
connector not functioning.
I know. It's true.
Oh, you're killing me.
This is the most riveting part of our user group is the technical issues that we seem to experience every bloody time with Teams. I mean, never a Power Apps problem, always a bloody Teams problem.
Would
Man, that's
anybody like a
hilarious.
quick comfort break?
We're
So
recording
I
this
will-
for the
so
bloopers,
Lee's
aren't we?
getting- Lee's- All right, I'm gonna shut my laptop down. I'm just gonna-
it to me?
Oh, it's still coming over.
Oh,
to you.
Christ
Okay.
alive, guys.
So thinking about this when Carl was presenting just now, the time when XrmToolBox has come in the most handy for me was the night before the last time I presented at a London user group. And I'm willing to say this now because it's been 13 months, and if there was going to be a problem, it would have come up by now. So with some of my colleagues on the line, I'm willing to admit in a public setting that was the night I deleted the Microsoft account out of our production dynamics for sales, and all of the contacts, leads, everything ever associated with Microsoft went away accidentally.
Welcome to working with Andrew.
And I brought it back with XrmToolBox, and it was magical. So yes, it definitely prevented me from getting fired. So I'm very grateful to whoever built that particular tool.
I hope you donated via the donation functionality.
No, I didn't. Now I feel like a dick. Thanks,
So you
Lucy.
should.
Yeah,
A mission accomplished.
there we go. She has done much.
Please talk amongst yourselves, ladies and gentlemen.
We lost him again.
So, Keith, I want to know so much about CDS. I don't know anything about it.
Well, the golden rule of CDS before you do anything with CDS is you need to make an entity relationship diagram in some sort of drawing program.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, I will hunt you down and kill you.
I
one.
actually have one open on my computer right now.
See what I mean? Without that, it doesn't work. And for some reason, Microsoft didn't find the sense to build it in. You know, you've got amazing people like Carl out there who are able to redraw a flow in Visio. I cannot understand why there's not a magic button that they can press and just make it happen.
I'm so excited about that, the flow diagrams and being able to put that in documentation. It's been a pain in the butt to do it manually. So now I have a tool. It's great.
There's a few out there. I mean, I personally prefer Draw.io because I think it's free. You can get it as a sort of standalone app, and it connects to SharePoint and all that kind of stuff. And you can. Oh, right. Are we ready? Lee's now done his bit where he's showed the Lucy and Andrew how to use a computer. Which is.
All right, I'll shut up now. It's the button that says with the mic. You guys can turn that on, and then you guys can see it.
It's right, Jeff. Technical support here.
I know. I know. All right. Oh yeah, we gotta hang up now. Just turn the phone off. Oh.
Did you actually just hear then how annoying your voice is?
Yeah, I did. I just heard how annoying my voice is, and I would be sorry, Lee, if I actually didn't dislike you so much. So
The most frustrating thing is that it seems
Have they just frozen?
Yeah, and the keys left.
So the most frustrating thing was.
We're delighted to be with you.
Yeah, so hello from the Power Platform Adoption Framework group. This is something that we wanted to share with everyone because it's something that we've been talking quite a bit about. This whole idea of business value and making that business case, and we're hoping to be able to put together some best practices around how particularly large organizations are making that business case for CDS. So as always with the Power Platform Adoption Framework here, powerplatform.af, also aka.ms/ppaf. Come contribute on GitHub. It is open to everyone, and lots of great community feedback has been had.
Is everyone seeing the slides okay?
Yeah. Lee, come back. Fix it.
We're seeing all of the slides, not the actual slideshow.
I don't know. I don't know how you set this thing up.
Lee, you're gonna get a raise, man.
This would have been easier if we were not in the same place. We've made it harder for ourselves, I think.
I'm not actually sure if Lee's getting the blame here.
There you go. I don't know if that's probably the wrong deck, knowing you, but
can you? Is it fixed? Like, can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see CDS Saturday.
Here we go. All right. So we'll catch up and then we'll move on. All right. So Lucy, you want to take us through our agenda for this next 30 minutes that we've just wasted 15 of them.
Can you minimize the bottom right corner?
Give you an overview of the Power Platform Adoption Framework, or give you a bit of a quickie, as some might say. We might include that as a joke, as opposed to the actual content that we're presenting.
Exactly. The quickie has been completed, and we're moving on.
Yeah. I mean, I think we started on this journey as a Power Platform Adoption Framework crew because actually adoption was a really big part of what it was we were talking about. But that seems to really have evolved into actually helping organizations not understand how to adopt, but actually how to expand and really take massive value out of having the Power Platform as a platform, as opposed to just fixing a problem at a time and a place. We're then going to move on to framing the business case. So what kind of value we can get out of the platform and how we can sort of architecturally put that business case together. And then not just building that case, but then how we can put some facts and figures, some evidence against backing up your business case from public available data, and then how we can find data from our own organization to help quantify what it's going to mean to us as a business, or our clients as a business. And then finally, we're going to really help you to understand the true value of what the Power Platform can deliver to your organization, underpinned always by how we can greater understand how to adopt, manage, and govern the solution with confidence.
Yeah, so I think that part of when we've been talking this through, and this is again from CDS Saturday, which was this past week, but a big part of what we're doing here from a business case perspective has to do with framing, right? I think a lot of organizations aren't really thinking about Power Platform and CDS in particular as sort of from a platform perspective. They often think of it from the perspective of one of the Dynamics first-party applications, or this one Power App we need to build for this one reason. So the first step we really think to making this larger business case is to frame it correctly, or to maybe in some cases reframe it if you've already gone down the road. And we want you to think about framing this around three ideas, and that's the vision for the platform itself, what kind of numbers we can put in place to back it up, and then also the kind of making a people case about this rather than a technology case for the platform. So when we talk about vision, we really think that we want to encourage everyone to frame the discussion as
Common Data Service is called a service for a reason, not a database, right? And there's so much, probably a lot of you have seen this slide, have seen this material, right? But the idea really is that there's so much value that organizations are getting out of the box, right? When they think about this from a platform perspective.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think often as technologists, those that have come from a Dynamics background or SharePoint background, or whichever background you've come from, you've often probably had conversations with one area of the business, be it IT, be it HR, be it, I don't know, finance. And actually what we need to be doing is getting these key stakeholders together to help them understand how the Power Platform can really help them drive that greater efficiency across the organization, not from just a financial perspective, not just because we can cut costs on, solutions that we don't need anymore, but because we can actually really get benefit and drive efficiency through having data on the same platform. And like you say, it's not just about that data. It's not just about having it in the same place and being able to call upon it, but it's being able to do things with it that we otherwise would never have been able to do before by using some of the capability that out of the box it comes with, right?
Yeah, and we've done some math on this. Actually, I'll give credit to Jeff Myers, who's on the call right now. And Jeff and I have chatted this through and come up with, we think that from an app development perspective, it's safe to say that using, thinking about this from a platform perspective and pulling the Common Data Service into your applications really is saving, in general, about 30% on your app development costs.
Absolutely.
So I think, that number, we'll definitely refine that number over time. But, when you're trying to make the case for investing in premium licenses, for example, we think that the number is right around 30% in what it will save you on app development costs.
I'd be really interested for us to really look at those numbers now. As Nigel rightly points out in the chat, that might have changed now that Project Oakdale has been released. But actually, I think when we consider the cross-organization, division or business unit, we're probably going to need to revisit those, but I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference.
Well, it's funny you say that, right? Because and this list, I mean, we're trying to do is give you some examples here about what that platform approach across the Microsoft cloud. We used to talk about there being 3 clouds, and now we're really talking about there being 1 cloud. And just, when you're making that case inside of the organization, it's to say that, listen, we've got the Power Platform tool set inside of the Microsoft cloud, and this is the native data source, say, for Power Apps. But Project Oakdale has created, I think, a really much better kind of application lifecycle and continuity as a solution goes from being citizen developer originated, and then maybe becomes more complex or becomes used throughout the organization. So now adopting the platform full on, beginning an application inside of, say, Project Oakdale, you now have an upgrade path as these citizen developer apps reach enterprise maturity, which you've never had in the past. So for those of you who don't know, you're actually going to be able to create an application inside of Teams, inside of those Project Oakdale environments. And as that app grows, you will be able to either promote the whole environment in place or actually take the application and take the solution and redeploy it to a full-on CDS or to a full-on, because Dynamics adds additional schema to a full-on Dynamics-based environment. And then from an Azure perspective, we're able to say use Common Data Service as and use Power Platform as your transactional layer. Like that's where people are out actually performing activities, interacting with their data, but then we can push that data, say, into data lake for analysis heavy scenarios.
Absolutely, and not necessarily just analysis, but maybe where transactional or high volume, high frequency data is a requirement. For example, IoT scenarios, or where we're capturing that sort of really structured yet high frequency data. I think that's really vital. And I think you're quite right to make that point about the upgrade path from Project Oakdale to the Power Platform. I think historically, we've perhaps found a blocker when it comes to sort of building, where you're used to, perhaps you built on SharePoint lists.
Ooh.
Black mark on my name.
No.
I mean, tonight really is going.
Yeah, tonight is maybe the worst presentation we've ever given together, so that's fantastic.
Or even things like, SQL DBs or elsewhere, actually knowing that you have the ability to have that migrate path to go from one to another is really quite a valuable point, I think, to be able to have that cross-organization extensibility.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So Lucy, this is all you. I'm going to turn the slide over to you because this one's yours.
I mean, that really is very kind of you because I know how you hate to give me the mics.
It's true. It's true.
So I love this slide because I think it really highlights the difference between where you would choose to actually build on your own capability. I think we're constantly comparing building out Power Platform solutions versus Project Oakdale versus SharePoint List versus Microsoft List versus XYZ. Actually, where we find most of the key reference sites is actually building our own custom capability on custom platforms. And in this particular instance, I just wanted to highlight the building your own, the level of effort versus extending a platform that already exists. So perhaps for more of those traditional devs where you love living in code and you spend your entire day in Visual Studio, maybe let's consider some of the capability and extensibility of the Power Platform just from a means to an effort end. Like for example, here you can see everything in blue. I mean, it's all blue.
Why did you use blue and purple?
Everything in purple is effort. We don't have to necessarily put in that effort. We can get business value quicker. So I'll move on because that was my one slide.
Yeah, that was really yeah. But we think that, and again, we're very CDS focused in this discussion, right? Because we think that CDS is that key to unlocking enterprise value, and these are what when we talk with large organizations, these are the things that we really hear resonating with those organizations. But I'll speak from personal experience. The meet new needs quickly is the thing that I think is right now a very, very
topical, I think it was.
It was going so well.
It was going.
Lee, come on,
right?
man.
In order to kind of reframe and move that conversation. So we see this idea of meeting new needs quickly. Lee and I actually worked on a piece of work. It was COVID related, and we got the application from whiteboarding to deployed in 193 countries in 30 days, and that was only really achievable using the whole of the platform.
And I think equally, if we flip that conversation around, I actually think being able to meet new needs quickly, but also even if it's only for a short-term need, that is an equally valuable conversation to be having. If your organization is looking for something to help manage the communication to your staff on getting back into the office, not necessarily on booking desks or returning to work, but by being able to communicate that conversation, we're not going to need that forever. We understand we're not going to need that forever, but we are going to get benefit of the concept of CDS being a service, thanks to integration with Office Graph or additional capabilities, which you can't necessarily do with some of the freemium tools like SharePoint Lists. So being able to scale that up quickly and spin it down quickly, so you're not left with a whole load of technical debt or publicly identifiable data in a place where you can't control for a long time.
Yeah, so we really want to share some really practical ideas about how you can shift that focus away from, say, talking about Power Platform for maybe more productivity grade workloads and over to talking about enterprise grade workloads, because you're not going to make the real true business case if you're playing in kind of the tier 3 level. You've got to be building applications that really move the needle from a cost perspective. So we want to share some ideas as to how you can go back, say starting tomorrow, right, and shift the focus here. So the first is around business-centric envisioning. I think that often we end up talking with IT folk when really we should be talking with business, with business folk. That is how we're going to actually make this argument. And when you look at, hey, where is this workload, right? What kind of workloads are we looking for to shift the focus? The first are places where you find there's bags of money, right? So you're looking for business problems, you're looking for workloads in the organization that either cost a lot of money or are making the organization a lot of money. I've seen cases where you arrive at a a single Power Platform solution that you're going to move, say, not that I'm citing anything specifically here, but something on the order of 1.6 billion pounds a year, that's going to make a difference, right? That's going to justify that investment in premium licensing and in adopting the entire, adopting the platform all up. The next are masses of people. This is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you think masses of people. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Where we can get the biggest impact most quickly. I'm seeing quite a lot of chat around, the love for SharePoint lists and the love for Excel, and I don't think this conversation is necessarily around not loving those solutions for the scenarios where they make sense. I think this is more around when does the argument for Power Platform really make sense. So we're by no means suggesting that there isn't a place for most of these capabilities. I think we're trying to.
I think to me it's about making the case for enterprise grade workloads, right? Like you're not going to, the bottom line is that you're not going to move the needle from a platform adoption and from a funding perspective as businesses make funding decisions. You're not going to move the needle on funding unless you are actually using the platform to drive mission critical business processes. And the fact is you should not be driving mission critical business processes off of SharePoint lists and Excel. Like that is the problem that Power Platform is trying to solve. There's a lot of great things. I spend far more time in Excel than I do in CDS. That's a dirty and unfortunate secret, right? But the fact is you're not going to drive, that number that I quoted, 1.6 billion pounds a year. You're not going to drive that off of data living inside of.
I know, but if I did have a pound for every time someone asked me, can I export that view to Excel? I'd be far better off than I am now. But I think the final point really is quite a key one, certainly from my experience in delivering CDS or CRM or Dynamics or the Power Platform into organizations, is having that capability to migrate from legacy technology that allows us to understand where we can make cost savings in other areas of the business to migrate that over to the common data service. This really is the time when we can capture the mindset and the mind share of the people holding the purse strings, right? I mean, they're going to be able to completely directly relate the sunsetting of one solution versus the cost savings of delivering it on a platform we already have used elsewhere in the organization.
Right. Though I will say the idea of when Microsoft makes the Power Platform both the premium connectors and also CDS free, then we'll migrate to it. So for those of you who don't know, I recently relocated to the UK, and I've been relying on my neighbors here to drive me places when I need to go somewhere. But I'm going to adopt that. When I can get a free car, that is when you will have to stop. You won't have to drive me places anymore. That's the. I'm going with it. I don't know. It can't happen soon enough, right? So I think the next piece though is about IT management and governance. And we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because there's a lot of information out there that I think is useful. But I think that you really need to make IT your friend when it comes to these types of adoptions. I had a call actually earlier today with a pretty large organization, and it was all about, hey, we need to turn IT into a friend here when it comes to adopting, the premium connectors and the CDS capability. And for that, where do we send you? What are we managing? It's seriously just go look in the framework. It's all there. It'll be useful to you.
And I think we focus quite a lot on sort of this concept of enterprise grade workloads or large scale organizations, but I think the same concept relates. I mean, even if we're thinking about how organizations sort of acquire other organizations to scale and grow, having that scalability and that fundamental foundation that can expand, I think is a really important thing to just bear in mind. We're not just talking about how we can get this into a 3,000 seat business from day one. It's how we can get this into a sizable organization or even a small organization that has the propensity or the desire to grow.
I'm working with there's I'm working with an organization that is actually only 30 people work there, but the way they're structured, they're a real estate investment trust. Basically, there's a lot of money flowing through that organization, even though there aren't a lot of people there, because the work that the people do is all it's accounting driven, right? It's investment driven, and they are adopting Power Platform all up. And even though we're only talking about 30 people, I would say that those are enterprise grade workloads as well. So enterprise grade doesn't necessarily mean large. It means important and consequential to the organization. So let's talk about sunsets. So when we talk about the reason that we want to drive home this idea of sunsetting legacy technology is because there's loads of there's loads of legacy tech out there that is coming to end of life. And what I'm thinking about specifically here are InfoPath forms. Jeff Myers is on the call, I think, unless he's dropped. He's right now leading the migration of 11,000 InfoPath forms to Power Platform.
Yeah, it's fun.
So the fact is that there's a need for organizations to get off of InfoPath. The same goes with even sooner, actually, the sunsetting of SharePoint Classic Workflows, which are going to have to move, right? So the reason we encourage you to look for these workloads or these business activities that are being driven by technologies that are going away is because, one, business users need them, and hand in hand, IT has got to get rid of them. And we've had such a history of these types of things, these types of technologies really driving businesses, right? So we can, they're often high volume, right? So you can migrate just loads of functionality to the platform. But we also have an opportunity by getting rid of them, we can free up budget that's being spent, right, to maintain them, and then actually reallocate that. So part of the business case, right, is making the case, but then also going and finding the money. So we in the end of the day, you've got to do that. And these are just some of the things that we're looking for here, right? So
Al's mentioned Lotus Notes. Yeah, we've
yes.
seen that. I think InfoPath is actually more of a US thing. I don't know whether it had so much prevalence in the UK.
Oh my God!
Oh no, it's everywhere.
Nightmare.
It did have, yeah.
InfoPath is everywhere.
Jeff, if you want to come off on mute,
everywhere.
but here's
I've
really
built it
the
lots of
real
places.
deal on this, right? It's these two things: high volume, and we can reallocate funding from it, because ultimately this is a numbers game.
100%, and that's the thing I think as technologists or lovers of the technology that we really have to get over is we are staunchly campaigning for the bit of tech that we are passionate about. Actually, really, what our stakeholders are asking for is, what does it mean in black and white? What do the numbers mean on paper?
Yeah, so there's a really great study out there that everyone needs to be familiar with inside and out. And by the way, Andy, yes, and it saddens me. In any case, yeah, it's this great Forrester study, the total economic impact of Power Apps. That is the name of the study, so you can Google that fairly easily, and we'll drop it in.
You can tell who's been in quarantine for 2 solid weeks. The person that's excited by the Forrester study of total economic impact.
Correct. 2 nights ago, that was my first night out of quarantine. My arrival to the UK 14-day quarantine, and Lee and Lucy and I celebrated Tuesday night with a massive hangover on Wednesday morning. That's how that went.
Speak for yourself.
Well, yeah, she just won't admit it. So go ahead. You want to, yeah.
But yeah, I think as you can see from here, like the Forrester study really does show that the main benefit financially, the bit that that our stakeholders are caring about, is the reduced cost of application development. And I think actually harder to quantify, yet nonetheless second place, is streamlining our activities. And then, thirdly, avoiding third-party applications. And we talk about third-party applications, negatively in terms of accumulating additional cost, or third-party like cost. I can't think of another way of saying it. But actually, really, there's also the question around security and where your data is sitting. And appreciate that you might not all be in sort of high compliance situations, but actually that's a real consideration. And we don't consider that enough often until it becomes a problem, right? I mean, we've all heard the stories of PlayStation and Xbox having major leaks, and that's just one example of where actually you really want to be considerate of where your data is sitting.
Nigel, I think you're 100% correct that that replacing Lotus Notes and InfoPath, I think, is 100% a benefit that we're going to find with Project Oakdale. But so basically what Forrester did here is they interviewed and they researched a number of real world organizations, and then they built a composite organization using, statistical methods that are outside of my purview, because I'm not a statistician and this is not my expertise, right? But what they basically figured out is that in their composite organization, the benefits over a 3-year period worked out to be $9.4 million. That was the benefits of adopting the platform all up over the course of a 3-year period. And then the total cost of adopting the platform was $3.3 million. Right. So what that basically leads us to, when you subtract, fairly straightforwardly subtract the costs from the benefits, that leaves us with a net present value of 6.1 million in adoption of the platform over that 3-year period. But that's not the only benefit that these organizations received. And these were some of our favorite statistics, kind of the highlights of that Forrester study. But for me, it's really that, listen, you do this, you do it properly, you do it correctly, you follow these, at this point, I think really kind of tried and true community generated best practices on adopting the platform all up. And that's really important, all up. It is a return on investment of 188% over 3 years.
Yeah. And I think that number kind of speaks for itself, although hypothetical. And I think there's quite a lot of conversation going on in the chat about how organizations, be it customers or our own organization, are responding to the pandemic. And I think we almost need to, I mean, lovely as it would be to completely abstract ourselves away from the pandemic, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with that view that cost is king. I actually think that the situation we find ourselves in, from the experience that I'm having at the moment in the role that I'm currently in, is encouraging organizations, be it partners, be it ISVs, be it actual customers themselves, is actually to develop more sustainably, because it's at times like this when they're seeing the gaps in their capability and they're seeing things fail, right?
Sorry, I'm laughing at Alan's comment. Oakdale has some significant limitations that will make IT departments see it as the next access. And I love Project Oakdale. If you have not, if we're connected on Twitter, you'll see that Project Oakdale is my alleged middle name. I love Project Oakdale, but I will say a majority of the organizations that I'm working with right now have very hastily moved to turn Project Oakdale off because of that exact same thought that Alan had. So I know I kind of took us off of our train of thought, but it was relevant.
I'm used to that. The one last stat I'd like to pick up off this slide is the worker hours saved. I think we haven't put as much emphasis on this as we did when we delivered this same presentation in CDS Saturday at the weekend, but actually one of the real key vital elements of this whole infrastructure is, giving time back to the people in your organization, be it so you can make redundancies, because that's what we're seeing happen anyway, or be it so that you can realign your users to be able to achieve something else. One case study that I recently came across in the UK was actually a housing association that, yes, absolutely, when lockdown first hit, had to make some very, very horrible decisions on who was to keep their job or not. And actually they were able to realign using a Power App people's capability to the tools and the skills that they still required. So for example, those that were otherwise doing housing inspections were able to turn their time to doing data migration or validation or some other process, and they used a Power App to help them understand the opportunities within their business and the skills that they needed to do it. And that was a really nice story to see actually technology being used for good and allocating people to the right places within their business.
Well, because we all know that in the UK, Power Platform is actually more important to housing organizations than actual housing is. So that's that is a I think Microsoft has the lock on that particular industry here. But it's equally important that you bring in data from your own organization, not just rely on that Forrester research. So I think you can kind of disambiguate from the Forrester research to your own organization. And this is not a seminar in how to conduct a business value assessment, but there are some really important things I think that you should be thinking about.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of key things that you can sort of add up to understand, you know, the value really. So we've got like the license, the infrastructure, the support costs of the or the individuals that it required to support your technology, the estimated worker hours saved, and that's very much a US expression, but you can kind of work that out. And I know that everyone quantifies this differently, but I do think there's probably quite simple methods that you can employ to help understand that better. And then the third point, which is slightly more difficult to quantify, is the risk reduction. And we touched on it briefly earlier, but this can very much be different across organizations. But you know, the ultimate risk for perhaps not being able to access something, perhaps because it's somewhere where you can't access it, perhaps it's Excel, or perhaps it's not in existence, or it's in someone else's head, or, you know, that is something that's worth considering and adding into your plus points. And then there's the final point, which is one that I added. This is my second addition to this slide deck. It's the soft.
Did I make the slides? Did you make the slides? Yeah, I might have.
Them,
Lucy
yeah.
doesn't prepare for anything. It's maddening.
my presentation would have worked. But then there's the soft benefits, or otherwise potentially unquantifiable benefits. Things like being able to build partnerships between individuals in your
the working hours. So it's always sort of funny when the two of us create material together, because it's sort of this mix of American spelling and phrases and British spelling and phrases.
So correct and incorrect.
Right, and you know, I actually found myself the other day. It was pouring rain, and I was texting with someone, and I mentioned that it's really cozy, and I spelled cozy with an S, and I didn't even think twice about it. It was an accident, and I hated myself for having done it. But I not so slowly will be assimilated. I'm quite certain. So what about what do we back out of this?
So we back out license costs. Now, interestingly, in the chat, I have seen some fairly contentious commentary about licensing, and I know that
we live to create contentious commentary. I mean, that is our #1 goal with every presentation.
Just scrolling through this chat is evidence of that. But
yep.
But certainly,
where's Chris Huntingford when we need him?
Probably in the bar. Oh
yeah.
No, it's past 10.
Yeah,
no. But yeah, licensing costs. So for onboarding those, certainly there is going to be an element of cost. And yeah, I appreciate there has been some challenges. And I say this as someone who has had to live out those challenges when those, you know, increases in costing has gone up. Then there's also obviously the solution development cost and the platform maintenance cost, as there is with any other solution that we're perhaps building or sunsetting.
And there's a really great question in the chat. Well, I want to come back to that question in the chat here, because this is how, and again, this is not a seminar in business value assessment, right? That's quite a discipline unto itself. But this is just some guidance on how to total up those sorts of costs to the organization. But there was one that I wanted to go back to. Someone asked here. I think Rory asked, what if Microsoft doubles the price of CDS next year? And I would say, and there, I see in the chat, yeah, that could happen anywhere. That could happen with any service that you consume, any certainly unregulated service that you consume. But I think that Microsoft is constrained by competition here, and I don't mean to be trite or quaint about that, but I think that there are some other very compelling solutions out there in the market, right? And this is one area where I think Microsoft has to compete pretty fiercely. So yeah, anyone who provides a service to you could double the cost next year, but I don't think that that's justification for just like, we're not going to use any services anymore because the cost might double next year. And I think that the trend that we see is that these costs will tend to be fairly consistent or declining over time.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's been some fantastic commentary in the chat, and I think certainly the comment from I think it was from Joe Griffin. Yeah, I mean, paying. If we could quantify the amount of individuals that it takes to keep the data center running, the development practice going, all of the subsidiary additional requirements needed to keep this service running. I mean, comparing SQL or Excel or SharePoint lists, which or whichever may even be Azure DB, is not it's not comparing apples with apples when it comes to comparing CDS because of the word service. Sorry, you're quite right, Carl. I meant MVP, Joe.
Yeah, did
Griffin.
you know
I'm
Joe was an
so
MVP?
sorry. God bless.
Yeah, oh God. How did we miss that?
I know. And yeah, you're quite right. You know, there is a cost to service. And
I'm sorry, Joe. You're one of our favorite people.
You are. I'm very sorry.
Anyway, Joe is an MVP. It turns out. Anyway, sorry. Keep going.
I've lost my thread.
We're gonna leave you. We're gonna leave you with maybe the most important as we think about this. Maybe one of the most important thoughts of the whole evening.
Yeah, and this was a super proud moment for me. I will not lie. And
when you started at Microsoft,
yeah,
when you made this slide.
Not well. I did make the slide. That was a very proud moment. But when I started at Microsoft, you know, 11 months-ish ago, I was able to take this standard Instagrammable image and, you know, really we need to be considering, as well as the branded water bottle and the cheesy rucksack and the name tag, we need to be considering the Power Platform and the Common Data Service as an addition to your new starters kit bag. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. And this is about shifting the focus from this being a technical cost to being a people investment. So we'll finish off a little bit philosophically here, but there's so much that we pay for, that we build, that an organization builds in to the carrying cost of an employee, right? So what kind of equipment you issue to that person, what they're, well, maybe not so much right now, but when we all go back to the office at some point, the physical space that you're paying for, you know, some other things here, even uniforms in some industries. And as Chris Huntingford is so fond of saying, most organizations, or many organizations, spend more on coffee than they would on premium licensing, right? But the whole idea here, when you make this business case, and this kind of goes back to the vision concept, but it's about reframing how we think of this cost, rather than being a sunk cost that comes out of IT, to being a people cost and part of the investment, whether you could consider it investment in success or carrying costs. But the fact is that in the world in which we now live, accelerated, if anything, by the pandemic, not slowed down, every company has to be a software company in order to succeed. So if you look at Uber, you could say Uber is a transportation company, but really what makes that work is the software that underlies what Uber is trying to achieve, right? So we've got to stop thinking of this as some extraneous sunk IT investment, and think of it as, hey, you know, we're going to hire Lucy, and part of the cost of having Lucy is giving her the tools that she needs to succeed in the job that she's doing. And that is that's about reorienting the cost of premium licensing around the cost of the platform itself, not just the licensing, but the management of it. That's about reorienting that total cost of ownership around, hey, this is part of what we need to invest in order for Lucy to be successful in the world in which we are trying to be successful as an organization.
And we don't think twice about that when it comes to sales training or, you know, team training or things like that. But actually, this is where that investment in the people really comes in. You know, and even if you look at the chat, so Matt Beard has just gone through a whole process of migrating from on-prem to cloud. I can't begin to imagine the stress and the weight off the shoulders of just knowing that you're going to turn up to work and have the access to the tools that you need without even thinking about it.
So yeah, well, so we had some difficulties, but some technical difficulties. Thanks, Lee. But we'll leave you with this. So as you frame or reframe this business case, we want you to be thinking about people, numbers, and vision. Some of our current favorite best practices are here that we've shared. But the fact, you know, really, we're probably, when it comes to business case and business value, today where we were around the topic of enterprise management and governance 18 months ago, you know, thinking back to, say, the Amsterdam summit, where we were then, and think about how far we've come. So I think that these are going to evolve, and they're going to certainly improve, but this is where our head is right now on making that business case. So thanks for having us. Lucy, you finish us off here. Please
feel free to contribute to the adoption framework, which is the ever-evolving community-built platform on adopting the Power Platform at scale. We'll pop the link in the chat if you don't already know it, powerplatform.af. And we've left you with a couple of key resources that we use on an almost daily basis. So I know the COE starter kit, for example, authored by everyone's favourite COE expert, Manuela, who I know has been mentioned in the chat and is a very good friend of ours. Where is she when we need her, hey?
Yes, probably avoiding all of us.
Probably, yes. But we shall make sure that you have a copy of this deck. And thank you ever so much for having us. Sorry about the distinct technical difficulties, and thank you to Mr. Lee Baker for sorting us out on that front.
Keith, back to you. Oh, we will post session materials when we're done at runwayview.com/speaking. So here we are. Keith?
It is not here.
Oh, this was from
So, no, Keith,
oh God,
Keith,
we got
Keith,
disconnected. We just
Keith
talked
had
to ourselves for however long we talked to ourselves.
Keith had to depart. So thank you so much for Lee. Oh, they've frozen again.
They're frozen. Thank you so much for having me. I have a couple of LinkedIn invites, and it was great being here. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the sessions have
you.
been really good. I don't know whether Andrew and Lucy can hear us, but thank you for that. I think you sparked an awful lot of conversation and discussion, as I'm pretty sure you probably knew you would.
Of course I will.
But yeah, no, it's been a really good evening. Really great sessions. A lot to digest.
Yeah, well, more work to do on the East Coast over here, but you guys have a great evening.
Thank you for joining us.
We're off to the Badger now. Laura, is that what we're going to?
I wish. Well, I can't have a drink, but I'll maybe I'll join for half an hour before I gotta get the kids.
I'm hoping. Is that now showing?
Oh, that's showing now. I can see that.
I have to admit that Carl rescued me and gave me a slide with some dates on it. So thank you very much, Carl, for making that I didn't have to make up a date slide. Dates over the next month for various things. We've got things I want to highlight. There is the 25th of November is Carl and Alison's next Power Platform virtual happy hour. And the next London Power Platform users group is on the 3rd of December. We're going to do it a bit different for this one as our Christmas party. We're going to do can you make a Christmas demo? Okay, so a 10 to 15 minute slot. So I want something funny. We want entertaining things. I'm hoping there's some people going to do a Christmas card, possibly with the help from Rory and maybe Peter's kids. But there's a form there to submit, and we'll put together 5 or 6 of them together for the evening. I think that's the end of my presentation. If I understand rightly, at the Badger we are celebrating. Oops.
We are celebrating Chris Huntingford's birthday at the Badger tonight, I think.
Yep, we are.
There's a special background for everyone to use. If you've not gotten it,
Put it in the chat.
Yeah, it's coming in the chat.
Oh, and Rory says there's a Power Apps for Kids on the 17th of November, 6 p.m. as well.
I will make sure those things get put back in. I'll pass that back to Alison and Carl. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Carl, and sportively. And Lucy and Andrew.
Excellent. So over to the Badger then.
Yeah. Over to the Badger, but you gotta have the right background. Apparently.
All right. See you all.
Wait, there's a link to the Badger. Oh, there's the link.
And there's the background. Oh, Very, very hunting fantastic, that one.
Just a bit.
Excellent. Thank you all.
I better stop recording.